that we have, and people must really be able to understand exactly what GMO is all about. GMO, from my layman's understanding, is the transfer of genetic material, and the truth being that, and if our main problem is food, and I'm sure our government cannot be that careless to allow food that is harmful to our people. I would be asking, Mr. Speaker, the experts, those that support, those that do not support the use of this GMO food, to really to have a discussion on us to agree on how we move forward. But as far as I am concerned, we must choose between what is a lesser evil. We travel quite often. You don't go to America. You can go to wherever. What we eat is GMO. Yeah. So we wait for our people to die, or we give them GMO food. And for your information, Mr. Mule, you are product of GMO. Yeah. When you look at the history of evolution of man, from Homo erectus, Homo sapiens, and now where we are today, it's genetic transfer that has taken place between human beings to where we are today. So when you graft trees, or mango, or lime and orange, you fuse them together, produce something else different. That is genetic transfer. So let us not...
Point of order, Chair. I doubt whether I'm a product of GMO. I'm a product of my parents.
Chair, I think, Chair, the direction we are taking is not being beneficial to the country, because the issues the Honorable Mule is raising on GMO are really not factual. And it is indeed true that the scientist is referring to the French scientist, because I was in the Agriculture Committee in the 11th Parliament, Honorable Speaker, and that scientific information has since been repudiated by other scientists. And therefore, when we are on national TV and we want to make the country believe that GMO is harmful, that there is this science, that the Honorable Mule is not availing to this committee and the country, I think we are not being beneficial. True, Honorable Speaker, if I can finish.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
If I can finish, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, it is also...
Mr. Speaker.
He is not finished. Hold your horses.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for that protection, because I was saying we should not use this process, Honorable Speaker, of vetting to try and play to the gallery in terms of demonizing what is otherwise government policy. The Honorable Inturi is not yet Minister for Agriculture, and as members of Parliament, we will have the opportunity to interrogate through the relevant committees the issue of GMO. And there is no government policy today that is saying there is no Kenyan farmer or any Kenyan who will be forced by government to either consume or plant GMO food. It is a choice you make. And it is indeed true in America. When you travel to America, you walk into a shop, you have the choice of either buying what is organic or GMO. And I want to believe that will be the policy of government.
Point of order, Chair.
Yes, Jeanette.
Chairman, I wanted also to bring to your attention that first I want to tell my leader, the majority leader, that he is the majority leader. He is not going to become the Minister for Agriculture for the next 5 years. The man who has a chance of becoming is the nominee ahead of us, if he is approved. I think he's competent enough to answer those questions. Secondly, Chair, the issue of GMO is a government policy. It was approved at the last cabinet meeting of the government. So it is important to interrogate the nominee very well on a government policy that he's going to implement, because he's the implementing authority as the Minister of Agriculture. So, Chair, it's in our place as a committee to know from him, as the man who's going to sell the seeds of the GMO to Kenyans, whether those seeds are safe, what scientists are saying, and what is his thought to make sure that the people who want to eat organic food, and the people who want to eat the GMO, eat GMO food.
Mine was just a point of information, Madam Chair, that the theory of evolution of man, as propagated by Charles Darwin, had nothing to do with the genetic engineering.
We don't even need to go there. He had no scientific basis for saying that, so we don't need to go into that.
Chair,
continue responding to. You had reached Russell.
Let me also hand up that.
And avoid Honorable Induri making an substantiated scientific statements.
Yeah, let me also add that, and
Because for sure, mule is not a product of GMO.
I don't want to take that trajectory, Mr. Speaker, but let me end and say that the Ministry of Agriculture and Government, you know, there are certain institutions that have different mandates. Kenya Seed Company, Mr. Speaker, has the mandate to scale up or multiply seeds that are used by our farmers, and there will be that opportunity. There is opportunity for government to grow enough or to germinate enough seed for use by enough seed for use by our farmers. Mr. Speaker, our immediate problem is really food, and of course government will be guided by basis from other jurisdictions that manage or that consume or use GMO, won't be guided by one of the organization guidelines. Mr. Speaker, will also be, I think, be able to take decisions and say, for example, if this is GMO, we can label the maize that you buy or the food that you buy from a supermarket, so that when you go to your own supermarkets, you are able to identify whether you want GMO or not, or choose to die of hunger and not taking GMO. So because that is a really big problem that we must really address, and address it candidly. I was asked about, I think, is Raso, about livestock. Livestock, Mr. Speaker, is an area that has really required serious support as far as I am concerned. And I mentioned Raso that will be consulting with the farmers and the county governors, especially for the 21 semi-arid areas, on how we can be able to ensure maximum productivity and reap most for our farmers through livestock. We will be proposing, since counties have holding areas, they used to be called holding areas for livestock, whether they can see how we can be able to establish food laws so that those animals that really, for us to gain more, can be fed from there and you wait, and then you have maximum that you can gain, because you have an institution like KMC that will be able to take up your livestock for commercial. We also have probably proposed off-take programs so that when there is drought at a time like now, and ask government also to keep a reserve, just like we are providing for food, strategic food reserves. We can also be able to persuade government to provide for Akite that will be able to buy livestock during those drought, those very handy times, for purposes of making sure our farmers do not lose their livestock. There is also our livestock insurance program, which we can also really bring in, so that in the event of loss of our animals, then the farmers really do not lose. But all this will happen, Mr. Speaker, if I have that opportunity to discuss with the people that are technical in the ministry, that will advise me, and then we'll be able to appear before you as members and the leaders of this country, because you are the people that are exercising raw power from the public in terms and agreeing on how we want really to our country to move forward. Mr. Speaker, I was asked something to do with the Ngalana Kulalo project, and from, I think, where I sit, the whole idea was from this was to provide proper infrastructure for investors to come in and do agriculture. But Mr. Speaker, this project, in my view, is good, something we really need to see how to revive it, because the whole project was condemned because from the first season, because the production that came out of the 10,000 acres was not able to meet the cost of the investment, and people thought it was a scandal. There is no way you can have such huge investment and expect to reap benefits in the first season. So, Mr. Speaker, to address the future problems of our country, we must face this dragon head-on, and I think we will not shy away from dealing or improving infrastructure in Galala Kulalu so that we can have investors to farm. Mr. Speaker, I think Mase talked about misplacement of roads in the Ministry of Trade and the Ministry of Agriculture, and on I didn't get properly, but was it Kenya land?
It is about the warehousing receipt
Yes,
system.
correct.
There is an order that has taken that to the Ministry of Trade. Yet it was established by the Ministry of Agriculture for crops and livestock products. So that misplacement, how are you going to deal with it?
Mr. Speaker, you know, when I have made sure that our farmers have produced enough food, and in consultation, working together with all the other stakeholders, the other part in terms of how that food gets to the market, I think, is an aspect of trade. Where there will be need for us to consult with my brother Moses Kuria in addressing this problem, I will be willing and ready to engage. Where the farmers probably will feel that one or two things are not clear, are not right, we will be open to discussions. And more often, that's what we find. Even when you legislate and pass law, there are those rooms where when you find there is some bit of lacuna, the intentions of the law was not properly, is not being achieved, then we'll always be coming back for amendments. So when it is tried, and for example, if it doesn't work, then you know the president has power to transfer functions from one ministry to another. So I remain hopeful that in whatever department or ministry, a government institution or mandate is given, then being bound by the collective rule of government, then we'll be able to solve the problems of our Kenyan people together. Okami said GMR is not popular. Mr. Speaker, you know, we can also, when things are done differently, and the forces of demand and supply are left to fixed prices in a normal market, then that will be the most ideal situation. Mukami, I think we can still achieve this if, for example, we were to ensure as government we are able to bring down the cost of inputs to a great level. If we can be able to maximize productivity on our small pieces of land, we can be able still to have the forces of demand and supply fix the prices of our produce. And I also want to tell the Kenyan people that are listening, the supply of fertilizer is not a quick fix problem of what we're having. We are trying to support farmers to apply that fertilizer to the source that need fertilizer. And that's something that we've not really discussed seriously about, because whenever government gives subsidies on fertilizer, everybody goes running to pick fertilizer, even for soils that do not need fertilizer. So as a ministry, I want to ensure that we provide necessary information, and we'll be able to test our soils and advise our farmers, and probably come up with a new platform where farmers will be able to know what fertilizer to use in what particular soil with certain pH. That way we will be able to achieve more productivity. And there are farms that have lined fallow for a long time, may require not fertilizer, and when that education is properly given to farmers, then we'll be able to succeed. It will also be necessary and important for people, our farmers, to know, and for the ministry and other county governments to know, fertilizer must be given at the right time, so that you do not give fertilizer once farmers have have planted, or give CN for top dressing when the rains are gone. So the timely giving of inputs or seeds, which must not be matched by a way we are able to forecast and be able to monitor weather patterns, will be able to help us increase productivity. And in that way, Mr. Speaker, I think we'll be all able to get food on our table.
Thank you, Honorable Inturi. And now,
Chair, there is a clarification. There is a question regarding...
members, look at the clock.
It's okay, Chair. We just need to do this for the purpose of this vetting. I asked Honorable Intuli regarding agricultural extension officers vis-a-vis the devolved function of agriculture in the county government. And I believe you need to give us the clear policy the ministry will come up with, whether we are going to have agricultural officers commission.
My parenthrum fee. The parenthrum.
Chair, you can answer them together. I asked about taking farm inputs, specifically the fertilizer, closer to the farmer in the rural village. What policy is government going to put in place to ensure there is a depot in every sub-county, Mr. Speaker?
Yes,
Chair, can I add on something? Honorable Inturi, I think we should also encourage our farmers to start using manure, what we used to do when we were young. Instead of using fertilizer, we do organic.
Chair, clarification also on the one issue. Chair, it will be very absurd if the nominee lives here without saying anything about fish also. Say something about fish. Please, fish.
That question, but you never answered.
Mr. Speaker,
You have 2 minutes to attend to all those issues.
Mr. Speaker, I want to agree with Mheshimiwa.
And you've got it.
Yes, agricultural extension officers. Mr.
Taking subsidized fertilizer and seeds closer to the farmers.
Yes.
And then parenthrum.
Pyrethrum and fish.
Mr. Speaker,
And the use of manure as opposed to petrochemical-based fertilizers.
number one, that's a very good proposal from Mukami, and farmers must listen. You keep more livestock, whether it's poultry, cows, goats, that will be the best excellent manure to use for our crops, because they are safe, better than even the fertilizer we're talking about. Number two, agricultural extension officers, that's where we need to go. People require education. We need to educate our farmers on what we need to do. Mr. Speaker, when I was running as governor, in fact, there is no single meeting I didn't go talking about why it is important to employ extension officers. Even when I sit with the governors, I want to persuade them to have agricultural extension officers, because these extension officers can be given performance matrices on how much food should be produced in a certain particular piece of land owned by how many farmers to increase productivity so that we are food secure. So I agree, I support it 100%, and I am sure this can be done. It is achievable and will not succeed easily. We do not tap. I also want to tell you that I think somewhere, and why we are feeling this problem, is that the Ministry of Agriculture stopped employing these agricultural extension officers some time ago. I think like almost 10 years ago, we've not been employing. And even you look at the staff at the ministry, they are quite old. So we will be coming to you so that at least you can also allocate some budget for us to be able to start recruiting members to that, so that, extension officers, to be able to beef up our education and training capacities to the farmers. Mr. Speaker, Emase talked about what we intend to do to ensure that fertilizer and seeds are taken closer to the people. Let me also commit that Kenya Seed Company, NDC, whose farms are used for multiplication of seeds, we are going to discuss so that can be able to produce more, and whatever support is required. Fertilizer and getting closer to the people, Mr. Speaker, we'll have either to get it done. You know, we have national cereals and produce boards, but they are not all over. This is one of the areas where we can be able to keep our fertilizer. But I think it's not because of the system that we want to use to avoid the abuse and the cartels. Probably we will have got to sit in and discuss with the agrovets on how we can be able to manage those stocks so that they can also be our owning area, our owning stores for the farmers that we want to support this kind of program. But you know, if we are to continue putting up more national cereals and produce bonds for purposes of getting very close to the location or to either the sub-location level requires huge resources. So we'll have to see how to balance our priorities, because it is important that is done, or how we can partner with the county governments to ensure once fertilizer or seeds are delivered to the nearest depot of National Cereals and Produce Board, then they're able to support in the transfer or in the delivery chain, so that farmers can be able to get their fertilizer at the nearest point possible. Any other question? Mr. Speaker, I think fish is another serious economic activity in this country. And Juliet, I won't tell you, Mary is producing more fish than Kisumu or your area now. We are in it. Yeah, like we are doing a lot of fish, and fish is transforming people. I'll be talking fish farming. I will be talking to my counterpart, Muvuria, who is now in charge of the blue economy docket, where that one is, and see how to support farmers. One is the production of fingerlings, so that as we encourage our farmers to keep fish ponds, then we also have the right species that can be able to do best in trying to support our food chain, because fish is food just like any other. And the other pyrethrum, you spoke about pyrethrum, but Gekaria spoke about pyrethrum. I think there are areas in this country where pyrethrum grows, and pyrethrum, I think, is a raw material of pesticides that we require for. We buy a lot of pesticide to preserve our seeds and our food, and I think time has come when we really have to sit down and see how to empower farmers, take back them to the farmers to do pyrethrum, because is a plant, is a crop that is so beneficial to our economy. I was inviting Mheshimiwa Gekaria to share more thoughts and ideas on how this can be done, because just like I had seen before, that we are going to map out the country to have crops data on where we have crops growing best in whatever county, so that in terms of disseminating information, then it's part of the thing that we need to be telling our farmers, so that they don't do a try and error thing. And I'm sure this is available. It is possible.
Thank you, Honorable Inturi. I'll give you 3 minutes to make your closing wish.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank this committee for giving me an hearing, and I
have given you 2.5 hours. All your colleagues have been having 90 minutes.
I think I thank you, Speaker, for that magnanimity, and probably say it's because of the docket that I serve, because it's so critical to the country. I want to ask you and persuade you that in your wisdom, Mr. Speaker, that this country requires all of us. The arms of government must work together, must work in tandem, and I am willing and ready to submit to the authority of this House in making sure that the legislation that we propose, the ideas that you come with, will go a long way in improving food productivity, in making Kenya food secure. If I find favor in your wisdom and approve me as the nominee to take the position of CS Agriculture, I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Franklin Mythical Inturi. I'll now, before releasing you, advise you to engage with the clerk's office. They need some documentation from you before you leave the precincts of this county hall. Sergeant, you may show the honorable nominee the way out. Do you members want a 3-minute stretch? A 5-minute stretch will resume at 11:38.